Greetings, new hammer, middle hammer, and old hammer folks alike. I am Old Grumpy Wolf, aka Len and Midnight, and welcome to the Minibar Podcast. I'll be serving you up lots of awesome painting nerdiness, talking to other painters from around the web. Tonight we have Harry Mason with us, and actually I have a question for you. You took your name as Harry Mason on Instagram. Is that from Silent Hill? Is your name actually Harry Mason?
No, it is from Silent Hill. I set it up as a Facebook account, and I really kind of didn't want anybody to know who I actually was, so I could kind of track down some people from high school.
Yeah, I saw that. I'm like, oh snap! The funny thing is, if I show you my the main logo that I've been using for my band for I don't know, since our second album, I'm pretty sure you'll know where that's from. Because only one other person's gotten it, but if you named yourself Harry Mason, then you should actually get what it is. So, welcome. I'm just going to call you Harry through the show. It'll make it easier in case those Snoopy-ass high school people are trying to hunt you down.
It's fine.
So Harry, you're from Minnesota?
Yep, I'm from Minnesota. I'm from a suburb of Minneapolis called Eden Prairie.
Okay.
I don't know. Lived here all my life. I've done some traveling, but this is home. So
I'm born and raised in Vegas. There ain't many of us. I've been here my whole life. God,
I think I've only ever met one other guy. One of the people I used to work with was from there. So yeah, no, that's really cool. Okay, so we'll get into the show. The first main question is
what got you into Warhammer and painting miniatures?
Well, and I did not get into Warhammer first. Really, what got me into miniature painting was a very kind of little known indie video game title back in the mid '90s called MechWarrior 2.
Oh yeah,
I don't think anybody's really ever played it.
I've still got a copy of it in my drawer.
Oh, okay, now that joke did not land at all. But yeah, so I actually ended up coming to miniature painting by way of BattleTech. Actually,
yeah,
like I ended up with the third edition starter box, which I actually have here in front of me.
God, I haven't seen that in years.
That's survived through many moves, and I started out playing that, and but my buddies were not into the sheer amount of kind of minutia that is involved in that. I don't know if you've ever played it, but it really does kind of act as sort of a simulator, and so you track like ammo count and heat and all sorts of stuff.
My familiarity with BattleTech was actually playing at Virtual World.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. Okay, that's really cool and probably a story for another time. But I'm mad jealous.
It was cool.
And so
it was cool.
What's that?
It was cool.
Oh God, no, yeah, God, I always saw those pods, and I really wanted to give it a try, but I never got the chance. Anyway, yeah. And so my buddy, he was getting into this game called Warhammer 40K, which I had never heard of at the time, and there was a sister game to it called Gorka Morka. And that was actually the first Warhammer I ever painted, and it was just a lot of fun because, really, 40K universe, orcs are really the only group that seems to be having just a really great time.
Absolutely,
and it was just like it was just goofy and a lot of fun, and eventually, like, I was kind of curious, like, hey, where did this come from? Because I actually fell in love with orcs. I paint a lot of blood angels now, but I have a hefty amount of orcs sitting in a closet here because that was my first army. And I kind of came to 40K through that. Like I ended up taking my Gorka Morka gang and made it the core of my first orc army toward the end of second edition and kind of into third. So
that was cool how, like, when they brought out Gorka Morka, you could actually use the models between both games.
Oh yeah. Yep. Yeah. Like I think my my knob for for my gang, I think, was like one of the old plastic orcs that came with the second edition box that same buddy gave me, because he's like, I don't play orcs, so you can have all of them. So.
Yeah. No, I painted up for my girlfriend. I call her Pepper. For Pepper's Christmas present, I don't know if you saw it or not, but I actually did a whole like diorama of a bunch of goblins and one orc in the center, and the outer goblins, the 5 on the outside, are actually Gorka Morka gobos.
Oh, that's right. I remember seeing that. And that brought back memories, because my same buddy, we ended up kind of getting deep into the game, and he actually was running a grot mob that God would just spank me up and down the field. It was insane. I hated those.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're
the
the point values for like goblins or Gretchen and Snotlings, I mean, it's, you know, you could probably field a couple hundred of them for, you know, 1,500 points easy.
Oh yeah, no, but so he had like this gigantic gang, and that was I mean, not to get too into the weeds, but that was really when I started investing in heavy shooters for my trucks, just to kind of weed them out a little bit.
Well, Becky, did you ever grow up playing StarCraft 2? Or I'm sorry, StarCraft 1?
You know, yeah, a little bit. I did. I think I had a bootleg copy that the same buddy gave me, actually.
Yeah, I think we used to call that tactic your friend was using with the gobos and the snotlings. We used to call that gooning or zerging.
Yep. No, we always called it the Zerg rush. I think those words might have escaped us at the game table too.
So he gobbled you.
Yeah. No, and he was really good because he was a Tyranid player, and so he was just really big. He could make mobs like do whatever he wanted. It was he was just totally used to that way of playing.
So when you got into 40K initially, like with Gorkum Work and whatnot, did you start painting, or was it primarily?
Oh yeah, I did, and you know that was the thing. Like it was honestly, I wasn't terribly good at it. In part because, like, you know, I'm a what was I? Like I was maybe like a 13, 14-year-old kid who, and you know, we didn't have the internet, of course, like we do today.
Oh, how old are you now?
And so how
old are you now?
Oh, I'm 42.
Oh, sweet. I'm 43.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So it was right around the same time, exact same time.
Yeah, and so like, yeah, I would paint these guys, and actually, I mean, at the time, I thought I was doing a pretty good job, which is kind of the key to the whole thing even now. But like I really found that I enjoyed doing the painting actually quite a bit more than I liked playing the game. Like I would because when I started playing 40K, like I got a pretty decent sized orc army, and then I was like, well, I want to do something different, and so I ended up kind of bouncing around. I did some chaos, some guard, some space marines, and I realized later that a lot of it was more because not because it's like I really wanted to like play a different army, but I just wanted to paint something different. And so I think the last game I played was probably about 25 years ago now. I think it was kind of like middle or so of third. You know, I painted for a little while after that, and then just kind of life got in the way. Mm-hmm. And when I really kind of sat down and really started like wanting to actually get good at it was actually during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. My dad had died a couple years before. My mom was selling the house, and she's like, "Hey, could you get all your Warhammer junk out of the basement? Like, I'm sick of dealing with it." And so I went home and I got it, and I opened up this Tupperware box that I had. God, it was just the wave of nostalgia just flew out of the box like right into my face, and I'm like, wow, I gotta do something with this. So I started so I picked up a brush. I still had a bunch of hobby paint. I worked at a hobby store after college, and so I had like a bunch of paint. I would do scale models and stuff. Mm-hmm. And so I just kind of started, and I would paint, gosh, darn near every weekend because there was really nothing to do. I couldn't really go anywhere, and eventually I'd like to think I got half decent at it. And honestly, it filled kind of a void for me too, because one of the things that I realized when I picked it back up was I was a very anxious child and during a time when I really didn't have anything to be anxious about. My brain, of course, would tell me otherwise. And doing the painting, I think the reason why I liked it so much was because it was something I had control over, that I had to kind of concentrate on, and I could focus on that rather than on like whatever was, you know, bothering me, which is honestly still kind of how it works. Like it's been extremely good for my mental health. I wish I had never stopped.
Since getting like I started paint when I was like 10 or 11 years old. I got into like, if I'm guessing you did watch the last episode. So like I got my copy of Space Marine and Adeptus Titanicus rule books and a comic book trade by accident, and I was just completely besotted with the minis in there. And my mom's British, and she called her sister. I was like, "Hey mom, what's, you know, like, what are these? It says made in England." She says, "I don't know." And she called her sister up over in the UK. Her sister ended up calling Games Workshop and saying, "Hey, you know, do you sell these things in Vegas?" Sister called mom back, told her where a couple places were. We went over and we got some paints, and And my first box set was 6 Adeptus Titan, 6 Warlord Titans, the plastic ones, and
cool.
a box of like a Space Marine Battle Force. It was like 200 Beakies, a bunch of Rhinos, and some Land Raiders, and that started like a lifelong obsession. Join the cult. But I have had on and off spouts with 40K. Like I stopped painting in my later teenage years, got back into it in like my mid 20s, stayed into it until, I don't know, my later 20s, then got into my 30s and didn't touch brush to mini for 12 years. And then just got back into it the January of 24 after a 12-year hiatus. And the amount of joy and like happiness that it's brought back to my life is astronomical. And it's actually one reason why I'm trying to sell my business, is because I want to do this stuff for the next 10, 15 years of my life while I'm still able to hold a friggin' paintbrush and my eyes don't give out. But no, you're talking about positivity and stuff like that in your life. Like, doing the podcast with like just people I find on Instagram, and like going to LVO and talking to people on the web about their painting. It's just, everybody is so positive, and everybody's very encouraging, uplifting. It doesn't matter what level you are, unless you're on Reddit. Reddit can bite me. It doesn't, like, people are vicious on Reddit, and I'm like, yeah, say that to my face. Yeah, watch what happens. I'm from the car scene. You won't like what happens. But no, just, everybody encourages each other. It doesn't matter if you're just a beginner or, like Goblin Green Good. Everybody's just there to like, hey, this looks great. Like, what are you having trouble with? Oh, this, hey, dude, try this. You might find a better workaround for it. And it's amazing coming from the car scene back to the painting and the 40K scene, where people actually like are super cool with one another, and everybody just wants to see everybody get better.
Oh yeah, no, and that's been my experience too. Like everything's like mad posy. I mean, as I kind of told you, I'm taking a little bit of an Instagram break right now.
Yeah.
But it was like, I was one of those things that where like, yeah, a lot of the miniature accounts that I follow, like really none of that was toxic. It was like all of that stuff is like, it's like, hey, come see my cool little man I painted. Hey dude, that's a cool little man. Check out my little man. And it's like, it's like just this, like all these like super nice people, it doesn't matter if you're, like I used to be like a 12-year-old kid who slapped like 3 colors on a Space Marine or something, decided to post. It's like, hey, good job.
Dude,
keep trying.
Speaking of which, did you see Louise's video, Rogue Hobbies, about the crayon eaters?
I did not. I saw the pictures. I have not seen the video
so good.
yet. I loved it.
It's funny, and like her crayon eater actually came out really good.
It looks really nice.
Yeah,
like it was.
I was
blown away, as I always am, by Louise's works.
My gal and I were sitting there watching it. We're both like, "Holy crap, this is really cool."
Yeah, no. I am always blown away by her work. It's incredible, and she's funny. She's very very interesting. I kind of hope maybe someday I'll run into her in real life. She seems like a nice person to maybe have a chat with. Yeah,
she. I actually have a question for her in that. Like, did you see the Orc Christmas song video, the Daka Through the Snow?
Oh, was that from like a few years ago that they put on like yeah, I think I did.
I just discovered it this past Christmas, and me being autistic, I pay attention to vocal patterns a lot, and listening to the little gobo that gets on stage and starts singing actual Jingle Bells and then gets kicked off stage, I want to ask her, I was like, did you do the voice for that? Because it matches your vocal pattern. But I'd love to get her on the show, but she never checks her DM, so she has no idea I even exist. But the crayon eater video she did was just great. And like, again, Pepper and I were just sitting back going, that looks really good. Like, great job, lady. That's awesome.
Yeah, no, yeah, I saw the model, and yeah, it was, again, like everything she does, it was amazing. So
like, I can't do it. I'm just like, I just no, my brain won't let me do that. No. It's like, I guess this is what having a stroke while you're painting looks like.
Yeah, no, it's a little bit too much for me too. I've got a feeling.
Or rather, this is what an aneurysm looks like in miniature form.
Exactly. Yeah, and I have a feeling too. Like, just I would get like so obsessed with one area, I would never be able to finish the thing. So
on to the next question that I have. Did you get into the hobby because of the gaming or the painting aspect?
Oh God, and I suppose initially it was a little bit of both. So like I said, I started out with that BattleTech third edition box, which actually came with God, I want to say it was like 10 or 12
Hold on, the miniatures that you got in that box, what color were they?
Oh God, they were this terrible silver plastic.
Okay, because I had BattleTech figures and they were blue, and I think they were resin.
I'm not sure what edition that was. That might have been from later, because I know the fourth edition box just came with cardboard cutouts, and I don't know what they did after that really. But yeah, the third edition set, it was just this awful like silver plastic that I guess was maybe supposed to make you feel like you bought a metal miniature, and like the castings on them were on some of them they were okay, but on a lot of them they were like really, really bad.
We made them silver plastic. They're not metal. Just kidding.
Yeah, no, and it's like I've painted a few of them up, but I've like literally to like get the mold lines and stuff off them, I'll have to scrape them with a knife, and then actually take a lighter to them to burn the excess plastic away, because it's like rubber. It does not want to scrape off. I went through when I started like painting again. I'd actually started painting BattleTech miniatures, and I wanted to repaint. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to repaint these guys that I slapped like 2 thick coats of Tester's enamel on when I was like 13, and then I was like I got through like a handful of them, and like I still have them. I'll probably paint them eventually, but I'm like, holy smokes, these are turds. I'm gonna paint some of these Warhammer ones instead. At least
it's actually funny. You just brought something up. It's really funny. You're the second person like to come on the show to talk about like how you started painting with Tester's paint.
Yeah, and I thought that was maybe a little bit more universal experience, that like, because it was, when I was a kid, at least, it was like, I mean, gosh, go into any, like maybe even a hardware store at that point, you'd find like those just sets of Tester's enamels. My dad's like, oh, that's good. He kind of saw me playing with with these things. He's like, oh, that's cool here. And he like went out and got me like a Tester's enamel set for airplanes or whatever. And that's how I started painting. And, yeah, it wasn't until my buddy, the same guy who got me into Warhammer, because he had started painting and he was using acrylics, and I was like, wait a minute, I can just wash this up with water. I don't have to like have this like giant thing of turpentine open in my room that makes it stink. And
I don't have to sit here and get high and paint my models.
Yeah, no, because I would often like paint with the door closed and stuff, and like not even thinking about it. And it was like, you
come downstairs, you're like, what's up, Mom? What are you doing? Are you high? Maybe.
Yeah, it was almost kind of something like that. It'd be like, I don't feel good. It's like, were you painting with the door closed again?
So going back to the original question, so did you get into it from? We went off on this whole tangent. Was it gaming or painting that got you into it?
Yeah, so again, like a little bit of both, because I got in the game and I figured, God, these would look a whole heck of a lot better painted.
Were they painted on the box?
What's that?
Were they painted on the box?
Let me see. Yes, quite well, actually. Okay. Which I didn't follow any of that, because it was just like, well, here's the color palette I have. I'm going to paint these whatever colors I want. And so I came up with, if I dare say, some pretty bold color choices.
Nice.
Maybe right up there with the crayon eaters, frankly. Yeah, and so it was kind of like whatever colors I felt like slapping on there, I would slap on there. There was no, I did kind of, I remember look at a little bit at like the BattleTech compendium, but it's like I was just doing flat colors. Mm-hmm. Like there's no washes. I don't think there was even any dry brushing until I started playing 40K and learned that you could do that. And I remember just like my mind was blown. You mean you can do this, and it looks the steel looks like a little bit more steely than it did when I just slapped like 3 thick coats of, again, Tester's enamel steel over whatever it was I was painting.
Just dip them in there and let them dry.
Oh yeah, no, it was horrible. I mean, to my credit, I would like to thank Past Me for not priming anything, because that stuff comes off real easy in the bath that I have when I kind of do feel like repainting them, which is kind of nice. But I mean, again, though, at the time I had fun. Like I thought they looked great. Like honestly, my friends thought they looked great, because we're a bunch of 13-year-old boys and like knocking around with colorful robots on a hex board. I mean, yeah, hey, that's a great Saturday afternoon in the circles I ran in. And so that's kind of what So really, I mean, again, to answer your question, it was kind of a combination of both, just because it's like I thought it would look a whole heck of a lot better as a game if these part pieces were painted. And slowly, like I said, I kind of came to realize, because I frankly wasn't terribly good I did pretty good at Gorka Morka, but once you got back into like the more kind of mass battles that you'd sometimes get into, even in second edition 40K, which I mean, frankly, didn't use usually that many models unless you were playing a gigantic game, which a lot of people, at least in my circles, didn't do, because it would, again, take you 2 days sometimes to finish with kind of all the extra things you had to do. I just kind of realized I wasn't very good at the game. I didn't enjoy it as much as I enjoyed, sitting down with my brush in my hand and painting while like listening to, I don't know, some kind of 90s music on an old CD player. I mean,
I was doing that last night via Spotify while I was painting.
Yeah, no, and that's what I do now. It's like usually like, old music from my childhood or true crime or something while I'm sitting there painting. Sometimes, it was Oculus and Peria's lore videos. I don't know if you've listened to any of those or not, but he gets, I would highly recommend it. I don't want to do too much of a derail, but I would highly recommend it. He actually plays the character of a historiator from the 40K universe.
Oh, nice.
And he just goes in depth on topics, and it's really interesting. And he even will kind of get into character in there. Like he has a whole video that's just a conversation between him and a character called Iskender Kaon, which I don't know if you've read any of the book. Yeah. And so it's just like kind of Kaon bagging on him the entire time. It's actually really, really good. And like another one where they have a recording of an orc, like having a serious kind of, I don't know, existential crisis where he's trying to figure out not only what is DACA, but why is DACA. And so it's like, they're really good. Like, highly recommend it.
These Umis make me think of what DACA is. I got no idea what DACA is. Do I need to get in touch with me in a DACA?
Yeah, he's like, I got it written down right here.
The one thing I love about the orcs, the one thing I absolutely love about the orcs, I love it. Every single one of them, they're all British.
Oh yeah, no.
There's no orc with an American accent ever.
Oh no, and like the original kind of British football hooligan prototype kind of has always been really strong in there. I think I knew about that stereotype even really before I knew really anything else about Britain, because of the time I spent playing orcs, actually.
No, there's actually, you mentioned the host getting into the characters' voices and stuff. There's a channel called Minisodes. Have you ever? Yeah, he does that. He'll actually do like narration.
I've watched quite a few of his videos too.
Yeah, he'll do narration for the characters, like especially for like the beginning and the end of the battle reports, and sometimes in the middle he'll start doing voices for the characters. It's pretty cool. I like it.
Oh yeah, no, those are always a joy to watch. I would sometimes sit there before bed and take one of those, and it was kind of a nostalgia hit, because when I started out that's the version of 40K we were playing, and that's kind of, again, like the nostalgia of it, I could kind of, even while he was playing, picture myself with those same like terrain pieces from out of the second edition box, like sitting in my buddy's basement, like drinking a grape soda and rolling dice. I mean, it was a good time. So,
one big thing that like I found getting back into painting after a 12-year hiatus was figuring out paints again, because all my paints had dried up, and I was kind of at like ground level again. And in my absence over the 12 years, there were so many new paint lines that came out. And I mean, you had Vallejo, they'd been around forever, but I'd never used them before. So you had Vallejo, Games Workshop, Pro Acryl, Army Painter, War Painter, Too Thin Coats, AK Interactive, and there's the Nostalgia 88 line, Nostalgia 94, so on and so forth. I've experimented around with paints, and one thing I've been very curious about, talking to other painters, and this is the question for the segment, is what kind of paint do you use and do you prefer?
Oh my gosh, and I honestly, I use a little bit of everything, kind of depending almost on my mood. So when I worked at that hobby shop, I actually ended up with quite a collection of Tamiya paints, because I was using those for painting scale models, and they're actually fantastic for doing miniature painting. It has one of the most matte blacks. Their XF1 flat black is one of the most matte blacks I've ever used. I think on one of the Death Company guy that I painted. I think that was the black that I ended up using.
Okay.
But I will say though, a lot now, what I will use is, because I wanted to be contrarian, because like when I got back into it, it's like, I know Citadel paints are a thing, and I want to be contrarian, and I don't want to use Citadel paint. So I actually went with Army Painter, which I know people have kind of mixed feelings on, but I actually like them quite a bit, even the old formulas, because a lot of the painting that I do is with, like I tend to start with like a, black prime zenithal coat with an airbrush, and then I'll usually glaze with an airbrush, like a color over that to kind of get the, especially on like Space Marines, because you can do the armor really easy like that, and then do some highlighting with the airbrush. And because I remember a big complaint a lot of people had about a lot of their colors was the coverage wasn't very good. And for me, that wasn't an issue, because that's exactly what I wanted. I wanted something a little bit thinner that I could glaze and layer, because I have tried wet blending, and just for the life of me, I cannot do it. And so everything, like I've tried numerous times, and I just get frustrated. And so I do a lot of layering and glazing, and get my transitions and stuff that way. I'll use the airbrush for stuff. And so I do still use like a lot of Army Painter paints. I think their new Fanatic line is fantastic, actually.
Oh, the War Painter line.
And but actually, I do have quite a. I am actually starting to get quite a collection of like contrast paints and speed paints too, that I will use actually more as like washes than kind of what they're traditionally used for. Like on some of my Blood Angels models, you'll see like that there's like kind of the really bright yellow second edition style, like Aquila on the chest. And I found out that the Army Painter's Zealot Yellow speed paint, like over Averland Sunset, is how I start out doing that. It just gives this just bright, poppy second edition yellow that makes me happy every time I even think about it. I get a little smile. So yeah, I have some of that. I have some Vallejo paints. I have some like both their I think their game color or their mecha color. I really like, actually they have a burnt red that I use as part of pretty much all the reds that I paint. And I've been using that forever. And then for faces and things, actually the Reaper triads for their skin colors and things are really, really good. They have a nice consistency. They kind of for where you're trying to get those kind of subtle color changes, like they're nice because again, like it's not really something you're meant to slap on in one coat and have it, totally cover like a black undercoat or something. It's like you got to kind of work it up, and it gives you a lot of room to maneuver and get those colors and stuff in there. So yeah, I mean, for me, it's a little bit of everything. Oh my God,
I'm getting yelled at. He wants attention.
That's adorable though. Yeah, it's too bad. Yeah, my rabbit was running
this is
around
Gizmo.
Here. Oh my God, he's cute.
Okay, bye.
But yeah, I mean, for me, it's just kind of whatever like whatever mood strikes me. Like I'll use a certain paint for certain things. Like that, and sometimes it's just availability. Because in all honesty, the closest store to me is actually there is a Games Workshop store in Eden Prairie. And so, like, I do have quite a few Citadel paints now, in part because, I think they're okay. Like, I like several of their colors. I'm actually one of the weird people who actually does really like Corax White. But because they're right there on the way home, and it's like, oh gosh, I need just a green or something. Like,
the convenience of it.
Because kind of like something your last guest mentioned is like I tend to mix a lot of stuff. Yeah. Like if I need a color, I'll just kind of mix it up. If I need a highlight color, I'll mix it up kind of based on what I'm doing. Like I think you mentioned, I really like highlighting blacks up to kind of like a cool gray rather than just going with like a neutral gray. I think it kind of just looks washed out otherwise.
It's funny. So, I think a lot of painters, like when you get more advanced in your painting techniques, it seems like a lot of painters really prefer the cool gray over like the neutral or warm gray.
Yeah, I think it's got like a little bit more personality to it. Yeah. I don't know what it is. I've tried all of it. It's just I hit on I think it was the combination of, usually I do black. I will do kind of like a chunky highlight of like some what is it? I'm blanking out. It's like this really kind of dark turquoise that Games Workshop makes. I can't remember Yeah. Oh, Incubi Darkness. Incubi
Okay.
Dark, which is almost, once it goes over the black, is almost black itself. And I'll kind of highlight that up using like wolf gray from Army Painter and stuff until I get kind of like just kind of like a nice kind of bluish gray on there. It doesn't look like super blue, but it's not like kind of the washed out like neutral gray that I kind of started out with when I was first painting like blacks and stuff. And it kind of, I don't know, I tried doing it once on one of my models and it just never really did it for me, I guess.
You know, it's funny how like, and this is like me learning as I'm going along and meeting more people, like seeing more advanced painters on YouTube, Zumatico, I swear I'll get his name right one of these days. Him, even Louise, painters, more advanced painters that I'm meeting here in town through Verco's Vault, and like even you and Warheezy. It seems like as we get more advanced with our painting, we always tend to start with a black base coat as opposed to painting over like a pure white.
Yeah.
And even if I'm gonna do, well, like if it's like my Blood Angels, I'm gonna start with a pure red base coat. I'm gonna go from white primer to red. But if you watch the painting tutorial I have for them, I still go around and black line them. But like my Space Wolves, when I finally get that tutorial done, the audience will finally be able to see it. But like, I'll prime them in white and then hit them with like an extremely dark blue, and then paint over every single armor panel with I forgot the name of it. It's a war painter color. Basically, it's Space Wolves gray from the old Citadel paint range, not the current range.
Oh. Yeah.
So yeah, I'll start with that, or I'll paint over every panel with that, and then start highlighting up by glazing in, blending in, or mixing in white with the Space Wolves gray, and actually just going up to pure white. But it seemed like with that bust that I sent you earlier today, like I started with a white prime on him, and then just painted him in I can't talk. Painted him all over with AK black, and then just worked everything up from there.
Yeah, yep, and that's primarily where I start too. Is mainly I'll hit it with just a like regular Vallejo black prime out of my airbrush, and then I'll kind of depends on what I'm doing. Like that's kind of one of the things I like to do is I like to experiment, because actually a lot of my Blood Angels start out Imperial Japanese Navy green from Tamiya, and with a coat of white ink Zenithal sprayed over the top of it, because what that green does is it gives you like just a really nice kind of like rich red brown.
Yeah,
in the recesses.
Yeah, it's a contrasting color.
Yeah, yep, yeah. Which I mean, with my wife, who she's like a more classically trained artist. I remember I was like sitting there working on something. She was looking at me, and I'm like, I just can't figure out how to shade this thing. And she's like, it's red. I'm like, yeah. She's like, try green, you knuckle dragger. And I'm like, color wheel, what's this? And like, yeah, no, that's kind of honestly, some of the fun of it.
You might want to try, instead of green, try like a mid or a dark blue.
Yeah, and I've considered that to kind of get like more of like a purpley tone.
Yeah, the problem with the green is that when you coat red over green, it gets muddy. Whereas like it turns warmer and it turns kind of muddy. It's brown. Whereas with a mid-tone blue, like ultramarine blue, or a dark blue, like a Parisian blue, it actually goes kind of purple, and it still keeps it. It's a nice contrast, because it like you have this nice warm red, then you have like nice cool blues in the recesses that are coated in red.
Okay, yeah, because like what I had actually gone back and done is I will actually take and do a I don't know if there's like a term for it. I'll actually flip it upside down sometimes and actually take some Dark Angels green contrast paint, really thinned down, and go in there and hit it, and it almost does kind of like turn into a black, which I actually really like the effect. You can see it on some of my models. Sometimes I go a little bit, I do it a little bit more than other times. Like, yeah, I'll have to try that.
Just give it a shot and see what you think of it.
I just like to experiment. The last three, like those Blood Angels I sent you last night, those were actually just black with like a brown, like red brown kind of started out sprayed over them, and then just dry brushed up using different bone colors before I glazed them over red. And I really liked the way that turned out, just because it was less work having to go back with oils and do some of the shading around stuff, because like the dry brush doesn't quite hit like all that stuff, and then whereas the airbrush, I mean, yeah, I don't care how good. Well, I mean, I guess that's just me. I'm not good enough to not fill in all the the areas I don't want to fill in.
Are you painting them all like all put together, or are you doing sub-assembly?
Oh God, it'll usually depend. Most of the time I'll do some kind of sub-assembly,
okay.
if it is possible. This will usually depend on whether or not whoever owned the model before me, including me, glued them together with a plastic cement or with super glue. If there's super glue, I can usually get them apart and get them into sub-assembly stuff, because I paint a lot of, used things or things from like my childhood that I'm pulling apart. Thankfully, I used super glue most of the time. But yeah, most of the time, if I am able, I will usually do some kind of sub-assembly. Even if it's like on the tactical Marines that I paint, I will just leave like the bolter off of it, in part because then I can just take and do all my blacks and stuff on there and not have to worry about hitting the reds or anything or it getting in the way. And honestly, that's kind of my preferred way of doing stuff if I can help it. If I can't, I can't. But some of the 3D chess you have to play to get your brush in some of the places if you build them all the way up.
Dude, that towel bust that I'm painting right now, I'm gonna look. Excuse me, hang on. When I get around to it, if I do another couple of those from the owner of the shop I go to, I'm like, dude, can you print these in multiple pieces? Because trying to get under underneath that towel's like shoulder pad, it's a whole bunch of like just, this sucks.
Oh yeah, no, and I will. So it's God, I feel like I need to like take diazepam or something. I'm like a sniper just sitting there like, and like my wife's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like,
damn it, woman.
yeah, something like that. She's like, God, are you sure this is relaxing?
My gal's, she's seen me paint a couple times. She's like, are you sure you're not going to break your fingers doing? No, I'm fine, love. Go away. I'm fine.
oh yeah. No, she's walked on me a couple of times swearing at the airbrush. She's like, is this actually relaxing? Are you okay?
I'm fine.
Yeah, and then
just
stabbed myself in the finger with the needle. Don't worry about it.
Out of all the paints that you use, is there like one or two particular favorites that you have that just seem to kind of work overall for you?
Oh God, yeah. Like I said, and I'm just gonna put like a blanket statement again on it. Like the Reaper color triads for skin tones. Like if you or anybody is doing a lot of like flesh colors and stuff like that. Like blanket statement, I have yet to run into one of them that was bad in any way that I didn't enjoy using. Otherwise, I mean, I have a few paints that are kind of my go-tos that I use on darn near everything, and that really would be that Vallejo burnt red. I think that's literally just what it's called. It's kind of like a kind of a dark, not quite a red brown, but kind of getting there.
Terracotta.
It's kind of hard to describe. Army Painter True Red, which is kind of what I use for my for like the mid-tones on my stuff, and then actually probably both the Monument Hobbies, the Pro Acryl like black, which I had forgotten to mention before, and their orange black actually has like really good coverage for when I'm doing highlights, because like God, I want to control it a little bit, so I'll thin it down, but I don't want to have to keep going over like an edge highlight 100 million times to get the color to show up the way I want, because I mean all of it will desaturate, of course, a little bit, as you're doing it, but they have like kind of this really nice bright orange that has like really nice coverage that I usually don't have to go over and redo it 4 times to get it to do what I want it to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, those reds and those skin tones are things I return to kind of all the time. And again, the rest of it is just kind of as the whimsy strikes me. I might not paint something the exact same as I this time as I painted it last time, in part because I'm a forgetful old man, but in part because I'll just try something new. It's fine.
So, given that we grew up around the same time, and we're exposed to kind of the same heavy metal stuff for such a long time, is there any particular? This is another question segment. Is there anyone who influenced your painting style? There we go.
Oh my gosh. From that old stuff, I don't even know if influenced would be the right, because I used to sit there and drool over all the like just bright, shiny, beautiful pictures in like the second edition books and like the codexes and even the old issues of White Dwarf. but like, and so of course, like Mike McVeigh was like one of the, one of the old greats, some of the John Balance stuff. But really, when I got and when I got back into painting, just because I was trying to look for something kind of a little bit different than what was going on with like the Games Workshop box art and stuff like that. Like I liked it, but it's like I kind of wanted to see like, well, there's got to be like a little bit better way to do like some of the shading, because I'd watch some painting tutorials and it was always like, the paint the base coat and then wash it and then repaint the base coat. I'm like, there has to be a better way. And actually, so one of the Dana Howell was actually at her videos on doing like glazing and she and zenithal. She was actually kind of one of the first ones that I watched that I was really like, oh, okay, that's a really good idea. Appreciate this thing, and then we can, you can kind of have that shading built in, and then you don't maybe necessarily have to highlight every single edge. You can kind of figure it out based on where it ended up a little bit brighter or a little bit darker, and kind of accentuate stuff that you like or whatever you feel. So I would say that she was kind of a big one. And then there's just like other people who, who's painting. I just kind of drool over that Zumikito, however you pronounce his name. Sorry, buddy.
I'm gonna look that up right now to get that over with, because we need to know.
Yeah, like I love like seeing his stuff is really fun. Louise's stuff is of course really fun to look at. I watched Duncan.
It's Zumikito.
Zumikito. Yep. Okay. And like, yeah, I will watch Duncan almost kind of like a Bob Ross kind of figure.
I've heard he's like, I've never met him, but like everyone has told me, like he's just like this like nicest person you'll ever meet. He's just like super chill and just like, oh hey, come on, sit down, paint a happy little bush with me. Yeah, no, and that's just kind of the vibe he has. And so it's like if I'm having a bad day at work or I can't figure out a tool path or something at lunch, I'll pop on like one of his videos. I don't know, like painting a goblin or something. And I'm like, just okay, yeah, no, I think we'll be okay. Oh no, it's a happy little mistake. No, we're gonna go ahead and paint over that happy little mistake. Oh yeah, no, and that's his thing though, because it's like, oh, don't worry, if you make a mistake, we can always tidy it up later. And it's like, and God, I that is like one of the things, like even now, like I will find myself thinking like, God, I'll make a wrong brush stroke, and it's like, gosh, I dunk this thing in the soup and try again later. It's like, no, step away from it. You can tidy it up later. It's okay. Well, funny enough, like with my Blood Angel painting tutorial, there was a lot of people before, like I added all the text labels and the narration to it. There's a lot of people who were really confused, like going from base coat to doing black lining, and then I was fixing my black lining with white over the red, and people thought I was undercoating my highlight areas with white. And I was like, no, get to the next segment in the video. And they still thought I was like covering up the white for highlighting. I'm like, no, I'm fixing the white. It's called undercoating. Like, have you never done this or heard of this? And most people are like, no, we've never seen that before. And it's like, that's old school painting stuff right there from like the 90s and the 2000s. Goodness. Like you spill a dark color onto like a red or a pink or a yellow. And because the pigment is so thin in those colors, you've got to re-base coat, re-undercoat with white, and then paint over it again so everything matches. And the way that I work with my models is I call it painting upwards. So you base coat it, you do all your recess stuff, and then you go through like a lot on a Space Marine, like the back of their legs or like their joints, basically the rubbering between their armor plates. You paint those, you highlight those up, and then any spillage onto the base coat, you cover up the base coat again, and it's called working up because you're more than likely never going to hit those recesses with your base color or your highlight colors, and if you do, it's really easy to fix because you're putting the brush down into a recess as opposed to I don't even know where I was going with that, but yeah, it's just painting upwards. So yeah. No, and I totally get what you're saying. I follow a similar tack, frankly. Like I'll take and I'll get the like say for on one of my Blood Angels or something. Like I'll get the red or whatever the main like base color is down first, and then I will go through it. Generally, I have I think a little bit of OCD, so I will generally kind of have like an order of operations. So I'll do like
blacks and then yellows and then bone colors and stuff like that. And then like I'll just be like sitting there in the back of my head saying I hate it as I get stuff like all over the red. And then finally like I will go back and that
we call that's called the ugly stage.
Yeah, no, and I can't remember who I was watching or what I was doing where somebody just said trust the process, and I have to kind of repeat that to myself like a mantra. But going through and but once I get to that point where I'm like, okay, like I can finally get in here, I can touch up the red. Doesn't matter that I airbrush it on. You know how to mix colors. You can totally match this thing. Like, you know, it'll be fine. And it usually ends up not even being as much as I thought it was. I'll be like, oh man, I painted that. There's like streaks of black all over it. Like, no, it was two places down by the knee pad or something that nobody's ever even going to see.
So, moving along to another question, I actually want to try this out. I came up with this the other night when I was laying in bed. Big question is, what advice would you give painters just starting out to help them avoid the pitfalls that you experienced?
Oh gosh. But gosh, the big thing would be like, just don't be afraid to make a mistake. Like paint that crayon eater, like, you know, try something different. Like that, cause that's like, you can watch like a whole bunch of like YouTube tutorials. You can read like all the, you can read every issue of like Fine Scale Model or White Dwarf or whatever, but really until you got that brush in your hand and you go through and you screw it up and you have to like teach yourself how to fix it, you know, that that's really one of those things that like don't be scared to do that, and don't be scared to, you know, start small. Just get good at like, you know, get good at doing those basic things, like, you know, getting a nice base coat on there that doesn't clog up the details, or, you know, learn how to dry brush, you know, that kind of stuff. And, you know, and if everything goes like super duper wrong, like that is literally what they make Simple Green for. You can always start over if you think it's gotten to the point where it is unsalvageable, but I assure you it will be fine.
Well, since you work in a machine shop and since we grew up in the same era, you screw up a metal model, you just soak that thing in B12 carb cleaner. It comes right off.
Oh my God. Yeah. Into the brake cleaner with it.
No, I use B12 carb cleaner. That's what I strip my metal models with.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have like some sort of like purple degreaser stuff, like a whole gallon of it down in the basement here that I have like a Folgers coffee can sitting here next to me, like full of like, I think
I'll see you in an hour.
But I think I just dunked a whole plastic Rhino I got off the internet in there the other day. And my wife's like looking at me as I like stick it in this coffee can, like, see ya.
She's like, what are you doing? Nothing.
No, she knows about all my weird little secrets and stuff. She's like, yeah, as long as the can doesn't smell, that's fine. You can keep it in the office. That's all right.
Yeah, there's I think a lot of new painters, they're I don't know how to put it. Like I think they like kind of stumble on some of the lack of information that's given, like with Games Workshop, and like just not in an insulting way, just the ignorance of new painters, like other people that are starting out with them or have a little bit more experience. There was a guy on Reddit who I posted some pictures of how I did my black lining on my Terminator, my Rogue Trader Terminator captain, and this dude jumps in and like starts saying, oh that looks like crap, you know, that's not bad casting, that's just bad painting, you don't know what you're doing, blah 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, obviously, you know, you obviously know a lot more than I do, boss, good luck. But
right.
They don't really ever tell you to like really water down your paints. And, you know, a base coat of, you know, hypothetically, let's say you're base coating a Blood Angel, I think the common color now for Blood Angel's base coat is Mephiston red.
I think so. I think that's what I've seen in the tutorials.
I'm not super familiar with Citadel's color range anymore, because I don't really like their paints, their current formulation very much. But you know, like Goblin Green in his tutorial for how to paint like Grim Bright Blood Angels, you know, he expressed very clearly, and this is what I do and what most advanced painters do, is that no, like you base coat it with like 3 to 5 watered down coats of your base color. You know, the guy who was jumping on me on Reddit, he's like, oh no, it's just five thin coats is like one thick coat. I'm like, no, actually it's not, but you go ahead and keep believing what you want to believe. No, you do it with a bunch of watered down base coats, and it coats nicely, evenly. It's nice and thin. You still retain all the detail of the model. You're not clogging anything. And I think a lot of entry level painters fall prey to, you know, they get into the Games Workshop ecosystem and use their painting advice and stuff. And I've never really noticed Games Workshop mentioning like, oh no, thin this down like 3 parts water to 1 part paint and do like 5 coats of this.
Yeah, no, which is really one of the reasons why, again, I really like Duncan, because even when he was still doing stuff for Games Workshop, he was always like, okay, here, we're going to add just a little bit of water to this paint. Yeah. And stuff. And that's going to thin it down, because we want a thin coat. And if the base coat shows through, don't worry about it. Just put another coat over, it'll be fine. And that was the kind of advice I wish I'd had, because I didn't even know that was an option, frankly. I mean, it's like, and I guess, and caveat, actually, the last thing I said about advice is, you know, the other advice I would have for like a beginner painter is, if you run into that Reddit guy, like, don't listen to him. Just paint it until you're happy with it. Like, this is supposed to be a hobby that you enjoy. Just paint it till it's happy. Don't compare yourself to people. Not everything has to be a Golden Demon winner. Yeah. You know, like I still don't think really any of my painting has gotten up to that level, and that's fine, because I paint it to relax. Like, if I don't paint it to stress out. But yeah, no, but that is definitely true. Getting back to what you're talking about is that, and I think that's always been kind of the thing, was like, okay, how do I get from here, like uncoated, like metal or plastic model, to here, the shiny box art that I've just gotten. And it's even now, I feel like it's not, there's not quite the, you know, it's kind of hard to figure out the direct line from how to get from here to there. Yeah. And so, which is why I encourage people, you know, just try something.
There ain't no direct line. It's like woogie woogie woogie.
Oh no. No, like even on that one guy I showed you with the plasma glow that I had done on him. Like, I was following a tutorial from the internet. I got done with it. I thought it looked like crap. So yeah, I was sitting there like glazing colors into it until I was like, yeah, that looks pretty good. She looks like she's glowing real good now. So. Well,
there's one piece of advice I give every artist, doesn't matter what, musician, painter, miniature painter, whatever you're doing art wise, like, your worst pieces will always be your best pieces, because your worst pieces always teach you the most. You can point out everything that you hate about that particular model and or that particular piece. You pick it apart in your brain, you study it relentlessly for the things that you dislike about it. Your best pieces are when you've plateaued and you need to get off that plateau. You need to try something different, you need to try something new, you need to push yourself to do something that you normally wouldn't do. And
no, absolutely, because that's when I'll find myself getting bored, frankly. And it's like, God, I want to do something different, you know, or whatever. Whether that's you know, taking a break from trying to, frankly, maybe work so hard. Like, case in point, like, I've been painting a lot of, you know, I've been doing a lot of Blood Angels, because I like Blood Angels. I like the lore behind them. I think they're fun. But I tend to, I try to, as anybody would do, paint up to the best of my ability. And even on some of these old models, like, you can go ham on them. Yep. You know, like, you can kind of get them looking as nice as you want. I mean, case in point, your RTB01 Space Marines that you were doing. I mean, again, kind of a turd of a sculpt. You make them look beautiful.
Thank you.
And it kind of gets to the point, like, gosh, maybe I just want to paint something easy, or like, even that can be something different. So, like, I have right now one of my old BattleTech miniatures, just a giant pewter. It's a mech called a Cyclops, and those old pewter miniatures were all panel lines and kind of sharp edges. Mm-hmm. And so, like, they lend themselves, like, if you were gonna paint those like a Games Workshop miniature, where you're taking an edge, highlighting every single thing, you will go insane. Oh yeah, like you will end up in a home somewhere. Like, it can't be done. I don't care what anybody says. But what it lends itself really nice to is, like, you know, hey, putting like a base coat on there, like doing some dry brush and making it look like really kind of, you know, like kind of battle worn and stuff. Like, put some camouflage on there, do whatever you want. And so yeah, I mean, and so, like, even I said, like, even that just kind of move into something else where it can just be a fun weekend project. Because sometimes, like, I will admit, you do a bunch of, like, say, like really complex models in a row, and you just want a nice weekend project.
Yeah.
Like, that's one of the reasons why I only do one painting contest a year, and that's Old and Demon, because after that, it's like, I can't paint like this all the time. I would lose it.
Oh,
so,
cool. We get to compete again.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. I did that. Actually, I think it's sitting right behind me there. I did like a Word Bearer's Dreadnought that I did a lot of green stuff work on last year. Maybe kind of hoping maybe this year I can manage to eke out an honorable mention. That would be kind of cool.
Oh, I pissed myself last year when I got an honorable mention for my.
I know that, and it was well earned. That was a fantastic model.
I'm actually doing for this year. I'm doing a Logan Grimnar, the first metal one. Dude, oh my God, that is such a sloppy friggin' sculpt. Oh, it's so bad. Like in the detail recesses,
is it really?
It's horrible. Like where his, like on his face, where his beard, the braids off his beard and stuff go into the armor. They didn't complete the sculpt going backwards. It just goes flat like a plastic piece now does.
Oh, good. Okay.
Oh, I'm just like, great. Now I have to improvise this. This is what friggin' really. Like which one of the Perrys was on vacation that weekend?
Yeah. No. Wow. Okay. Yeah. No. So all the pictures of it I've ever seen, it's painted just amazingly, and it's probably because they got his good side or whatever in the photograph.
Yeah. There's certain angles that model's photographed at where you don't see certain sculpting errors in it, and it's like when we get done with the podcast, I'll send you some pictures of what I've got done now, but. Going back through and painting him, like the first time I painted him, it's the same model. It's a metal model, so B12 carb cleaner, it comes right off. I bought him in the early 2000s when he came out. When I got back into painting again and tried to paint him up, and like going back to this is actually part of the like relating to the question. I've become a lot more disciplined in what I do getting back into painting, especially now because the 12 years I spent away from painting, I've been running art departments for like vehicle wrap shops and whatnot and design shops. With the way my brain works, being autistic, and this isn't for everyone, but I come up with like processes in my brain, like this step, go through it like this, and I'll modify those steps. I'll come up with modifications for like, I don't know, sub steps. But I back in the early 2000s, I wasn't disciplined like that. And I look at my old models now and I'm just like, God, I was sloppy as hell back then. And I have pictures of how I painted him when I first painted him versus now, and it's just kind of like, oh, okay, yeah, this is bad. That was bad. What was I thinking? It was just really sloppy. There was like certain parts I knew I paid attention to, and there's other parts where I was just like, eh. So
no, and that's I mean, we're kind of on the same wavelength, because that's exactly kind of I have a rote process for how I do pretty much everything. And there is a method to that madness that I don't know if I could exactly explain unless I was sitting down painting the model and talking about it while I was painting it. But there's certain colors that I do first.
Oh, you want a good way of figuring that out? Make a painting tutorial.
Oh my goodness,
dude! You'll after you go back and
that might be a fun thought exercise.
When you go back and cut it all together and like rewatch it, you're like, oh my God, my brain is just a horrible place to be.
Yeah. Well, I frankly, I already knew that about myself. So, but yeah, no, and that's kind of going back to the topic that we were kind of talking about. Yeah, I think, and if you really kind of want to get good at it, I mean, if you just want to like paint for an army for on tabletop, like that's a totally different beast. Like if you just want to get them onto the field and have them, look half decent while you're moving around, maybe paint a nice character model once in a while. That's a totally different beast. But if you're sitting down and wanting to, turn out something that looks good, like, you kind of have to have that discipline. You can't do too much at once. Like I found I need to like limit myself. If I'm doing like, say, my tactical Marines, I'll usually do them in groups of 3. Yeah. And that's at most. And then like I found like any kind of character model, sergeants, anything like that is usually like a one-off, just so I can concentrate just on them, because I learned easy on the way that I paint, because I want everything to, what I paint, maybe not all of them are necessarily display quality, but I want to put like a lot of love into them. because it's something that I really enjoy. And it's like if I'm trying to paint 5 guys at once, eventually, like, you know, you're going through taking base coating all the black, and by guy number 5 and your third coat of black, it is not fun anymore. And so
why you got to say 5 guys? Now I'm hungry for 5 guys.
Yeah, no, that does sound good, actually. I think they're closing up around here already. It's almost 9.
And for those that don't know, 5 Guys doesn't exist everywhere. 5 Guys is like one of the best burger joints you'll ever have. It's just so good.
Oh yeah, no, but if it is near you, get the Cajun fries. You will not be disappointed.
Okay, so I wanted to jump into your Instagram feed because you've got a lot of really cool things in there. So let's bring that up.
Thank you.
And hang on, let me get my interact window up. No, that's the camera. Instagram, there we go. Interact, there we go. Okay, so we actually discussed before the show if there was any particular pieces you wanted to talk about, and you brought up your Tech Marine. So let's talk about this guy. This guy is absolutely badass.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and that was actually a really interesting piece, because that was I've been trying over the last few years. This was another thing that I started doing the pandemic, was get into 3D modeling and 3D printing. And so this was really kind of the first miniature that I made that I sculpted all myself. I ended up being promoted, I think, to engineer at the job I was working on, which kind of the impetus for this is like, God, it would be really cool now that I'm an engineer to have a tech priest sitting on my desk. And so I'm like, well, gosh, I don't really feel like going and buying one. I guess I'll just make one. And so it took me like a month to get them all put together. But I really like the way that he turned out. There's some kind of other everything on here like I made in one form or another, and I think there's some kind of fun details that's kind of hard to see on there, because it's got a monkey wrench hanging off the back of his. Yeah, there we go. Don't know if you can see it, but down there on the kind of the left, you can kind of see it peeking out. There's like a monkey wrench hanging there, and like all kind of the cool tubes like hanging off his back and everything. I was really interested in. And another guy actually on Instagram, JJ Warhammer, who's like a really, really nice guy. He's actually been really considerate and supportive of me doing this kind of stuff. I actually made some trades with him for a couple of things that I've modeled. And he had encouraged me at one point to actually make a shop, as did my wife. And so I have a 3D cult store, which for people who don't know, it's where you can go and download STL files for 3D printing. And so if anybody who's watching it likes them, if you go there and look up Goblin's Den Miniatures, that's me. And I think he'll run you about $5, which I thought was a pretty decent price. And I mean, yeah, I don't know. Again, so it was just a really fun piece that I had a lot of fun making, and just that it's kind of all my own. It's like, there's a little bit of my soul in there, and
nice.
I get a little giddy every time I look at him.
Yeah, this is super cool. I really, really dig this. Yeah, what did you actually use to sculpt this guy with?
Oh, it was all done in Blender, which is a free 3D sculpting program. Does hard surface modeling, like you can do like soft surfaces like the cloak and stuff in there. Actually, the bottom of the cloak I actually did using a physics model, so I didn't actually have to really sculpt anything on there. I just made basically cool. a cloth tube, and then put some did some stuff with their physics engine to get it to kind of move the way I wanted it to, and then froze it. So,
okay.
But yeah, no, it's a really fun program. It takes a little bit of time to learn, but if anybody is like interested in making your own stuff, like even if you don't want to get as in depth as this, like a lot of the stuff I make is like on some of my other models, you might see like shoulder pads or even like jump packs and stuff on some of my Space Marines. I made those myself just because I thought it was fun. I didn't want to pay like eBay prices for old school Space Marine jump packs. So maybe eventually I'll even put those up in the shop. I just kind of haven't gotten there yet.
Now this guy's did you actually use that rust red color you were talking about?
Yeah, but I want to say that I think this one, because the robe was the way it was, I was like, gosh, I wonder if I can get away with using I think it was Flesh Terror's red contrast paint, which is kind of what I started with, and it starts out as kind of a like almost like a Mephiston reddy color, and so I kind of painted that on there just to kind of get like a sketch going with it. And yeah, and I think of like some of the shading I ended up doing later, I ended up using that Vallejo burnt red on it.
Okay.
Or at least it wouldn't surprise me anyway, because I use it a lot. I'm pretty sure the arm of the the little servo arm there, you can see how it's a little bit darker than the rest of it. And I'm pretty sure that was just like that pure burnt red that I had put over there and just highlighted up with a different red.
Now, there's a lot of people who are terrified of white out there. How did you do the white on him?
Oh, and gosh, and this was another thing where my again, like I actually I think one of the few people who actually really does like Games Workshop's Corax white. So I think I just started out painting it over that. It has, you got to water it down. I think that's kind of why people don't like it. It's kind of chunky.
Yeah.
You got to water it down. But once you water it down, like 2 thin coats will cover up whatever you need to cover up. So I think I started there. I want to say I shaded it down probably with combination of both Apothecary White, which is another contrast paint, and I think also like Army Painter Ash Gray. I might have hit some of the deeper recesses with some of that. And then I just did a highlighted up, and really there's only an edge highlight on there of pure white. And so it was, I think a trick that I think I picked up from watching like a Miniac video or something where he was talking about just getting certain colors to read as certain colors. You don't like difficult things like a yellow or a white. It's easier to maybe like paint it gray and then just highlight it white, and your brain will kind of see it as more of a white. Whereas it is kind of true. Like if you were actually look at it in person, it really is more of like an off white, even on the flatter areas closer to the surface. So.
Okay. Yeah, that's really cool. I really like this guy. That's
Thank you.
Super interesting take on a tech marine or tech priest. I really liked your step by step on your Chaos Dreadnought. That's cool.
Oh God, thank you. That was and that particular picture, it was full of heart. I'd used, I think, a decal to kind of just lay out the. Yep, there it is. Okay. I'd used a decal to lay out the original freehand that I had done for kind of the emblem. And when I had pulled the, I'd coated over it and everything. And when I went to go pull the blue tack off of it, it just tore the emblem right off.
Oh, hell.
Because this was I probably worked on that dreadnought every day a little bit from the start of like April until like when the contest closed. This was for Old and Demon. When the contest closed and like, God, what is it, at the end of May? And like and I was like, just God, it was like one of many setbacks that I had where I wasn't sure if I was even going to finish in time. So, but no, I was actually a lot happier with how the second version turned out.
And it was oops, I wanted the I hate this. The browser in this thing automatically skips back up to the top when I'm done. So there's the completed model.
Nope. And I really, and I really liked how this turned out. I don't know if I disqualified myself with the sheer amount of green stuff work I ended up doing on this thing.
This thing's amazing.
But I hand sculpted all the banners. I think the only transfer I used on this thing was actually the Ultramarine symbol on the base there. Yeah, but I tried to kind of go a little bit grittier than I do with this. Like the metals on it, I coated in oil paints and like wiped them off. And actually, an interesting thing about this too was the both that skull and that Space Marine helmet down there were actually spares that I had that I sculpted and 3D printed. And I was like, well, I'm not going to burn a perfectly good Space Marine helmet for base scatter. So I was like, I'll throw that in there. And I have like a whole box of skulls, like a serial killer kind of laying around.
I like I really like the variety that you have on the armor panels and the reds, how it's 2 different patterns. That's super cool.
Yeah, and I tried to kind of get back to like if you look in the old Chaos Codex, the word bearers had like they would have like almost like kind of like this lava or like magma pattern on like various pieces of their armor, and so I really tried to kind of copy that. But I also like the more modern ones where it looked like they'd kind of carved like geometric symbols in there, and so that's kind of what I had done on some of the other armor panels.
I'm assuming you made the banner out of green stuff.
Yep, yeah, I made the banner out of green stuff and all the little like, what do you want to call them, scrolls or whatever, because it was kind of like I mean, it's not really a word bearer if it's not covered in a whole bunch of like weird esoteric nonsense, I guess. So.
Yeah, that one dude from the Horus Heresy era where he like he tattooed all the scripture all over himself.
Yep, Erebus, who everybody rightfully hates. Yep. Yeah,
this thing.
Yep, and that was
this thing.
Yep, those
super
are all
cool.
Yeah, no, but I actually took that part down there is the original kind of back piece for it, which just was kind of 3 little spikes, and so I took and I drilled it out and added a couple of brass rods and some skulls from an old Warhammer Fantasy sprue and stuff to make the banner pole. Yeah, no, it was a lot of fun to paint. I
Oh
was
yeah.
super glad when it was done because holy smokes, it was a month of just
Oh, there's your
pure hell
subassembly.
almost. But yeah, no, I'm really happy with them. I'm really happy with the way it turned out. I actually ended up bringing that one into work and setting it up, and like all my coworkers were coming in and gawking at it. It was pretty.
Now, one thing I really like about this dreadnought that like just drove me nuts about the way that GW painted it back in the 90s is I really like how you did the power claw arm with the greens on the tips, and then you actually made the mechanical stuff like metallics, and the way GW originally painted it was like it was all wood. It didn't make any sense. It's like, why would you make a dreadnought's arm out of wood?
Yeah, it did look a little goofy, and I wasn't sure if they were trying to go for like a rusted metal look or what the artist was originally going for on that one. But like, yeah, no, I just was like, God, you know what would look really cool if I just got, actually, I think this was kind of one of those things, like I was saying, where sometimes I just kind of go where my whim takes me. I think I just gotten a copper paint that I wanted to try out, and so I'm like, hey, let's paint this thing copper. I bet that'll look cool.
No, I like overall. I mean, this thing is just fantastic. This thing, your Chaos Dreadnought turned out really, really cool.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'll just since we have a zoomed out view, talking about all the individual armor panels, that just all the patterning you've got going on is super cool. And I really like the plasma glow you have coming off his plasma arm on his gun.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's one of those, I think, like we had discussed before too. It's one of those things I'm trying to get better at doing, even with like an airbrush or whatever. It's harder than it looks, and you kind of got to get in there with a brush and sort of fix things.
No, I think you absolutely nailed it on this guy. I mean, that's
thank you.
I haven't tried to do like ambient glow stuff yet. That one of the other bust that I have to paint up is like a psyker like yelling at the sky. So I'm gonna paint his eyes white and then do like blue glow around like where his eyelids are and try to have that bleed out a little bit.
There you go.
And yeah, well, busts are so much fun. They're so big.
I should try one. I've never done it before. I should give that a shot.
One thing I did want to bring up that I really dug on your page was this is just such a great example of an old Rogue Trader era Librarian Terminator.
Oh my God, yeah, no, and he was a lot of fun to paint. I was originally not going to actually enter the contest that year, and then I kind of started painting. And I was like, well, I'm painting an area or an era appropriate model anyway, so I might as well enter him in the contest and see how it did. And actually, he got a lot of love. I think even Goblin Green was giving me compliments on it.
Nice.
I think writing him back something like,
oh yeah,
my God,
right. It's right there.
Oh, there it is. Okay, yeah, no, and it was God, and it was one of those things I worked on right down to the wire. I remember my hands were shaking while I was trying to finish the banner because I was cramping up. But yeah, I tried to do something kind of fun with the base that I don't know if it really came through or not. Where I was trying to do kind of a vignette, because we always see in like 40K, like the librarian will come up, there's like lightning or thunder coming from his hands or whatever, and I was almost kind of thinking like, God, what about like almost like a Princess Mononoke thing where he's like walking and like life is like springing up like in his wake, and
that's
then, like
cool.
Dying as he walks through. And so if you kind of look at like the flowers and stuff on there, like I tried to kind of put green ones in the front, and I don't think I got a very good shot of it, but in the back it kind of goes to like a brown and then like disintegrates into like nothing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there you can kind of see it. And so it's like, I don't know if I sold the effect, but I still really, really kind of like the concept.
I really dig what you did with his shoulder pad here. The basically the cross pattern and the tiny transfers. That's a really cool way of breaking up a shoulder pad. Yeah,
and it seemed like a very Rogue Tradery thing to do. It seemed like they always had kind of like a checker pattern with something in it, and so it's like. Yeah, and I managed the two bottom panels. I did actually manage to freehand, but I think I mentioned it in one of the other like work in progress things that I just did not feel confident myself like freehanding a Blood Angel symbol.
I freehanded that Blood Angel symbol once. I don't ever want to do it again. Because I snagged a bunch of Rogue Trader era transfer sheets off eBay for like super cheap.
Okay.
Like I got like both. One auction I bought, I needed second edition and up transfer sheets, and then the guy included a Rug Trader era sheet in there that I really wanted. I think I got that for like $10, and then I found another one. It was 3 sheets of black transfers and 1 sheet of yellow transfers from Rogue Trader. I got that for like $8.
Oh, nice.
So
okay.
I've got more than enough Rogue Trader era transfers now to do my Space Marines with. So the one Blood Angel Beaky that I hand painted the second edition Blood Angels icon to, I ended up painting over it and putting the Rogue Trader era one, because I'm just torturing myself and doing a 5-man squad, because I've got two of the 5 done now. I'm like, okay, I'll do the other 3, and at least I've got more than enough now to do like however many Blood Angels from Rogue Trader that I want. But yeah, freehanding that thing, not fun, especially on especially on the old RTB01 shoulder pads when they were like egg shaped instead of like a nice curve.
Yeah, yep. And
no,
I've painted a couple of those now, and it's like, yeah, no. Honestly, I'm a big fan of transfers, honestly, because I kind of paint stuff to look a little bit more cartoony anyway. Oh, and
the one godsend in my absence that I'm glad coming back to is what is that stuff? I keep wanting to say Instaset.
The Microsol and Microset.
Yeah, Microsol and Microset. That stuff. Oh, whoever came up with that.
Yeah,
Microsol smells like vinegar.
Yeah, but no, and when I was doing my when I was doing a lot of scale models back in like the early 2000s, like one of my buddies turned me onto that, and it's like, God, I've never, I think, not had a bottle of it laying around. So like, yeah, if done right, it'll just blend those decals right in. You'll never know they weren't painted on.
Well, it's more so my problems with the decals was like they don't want to conform to the shape of the, like, especially like a Space Marine shoulder pad. They just don't want to conform, and Microsol and Microset really help soften up the decal to actually conform to the shoulder pad properly.
Oh yeah, and I've used some of the modern transfers on those Rogue, on like some of those Rogue Trader Marines like recently, and it's like, God, it is so nice because like you put some of that Microsol on there, it'll just conform right to that like weird kind of egg shape that they, it
softens it right up.
Yeah, no, and it's nice. Again, big fan. Like I love transfers. Like, don't be scared of them. You know, you don't have to freehand everything. Don't kill yourself.
I really like these 2 Blood Angels, especially since you got like the old style jump pack, the turbine pack on the Rogue Trader era, dude.
Oh yeah, yep. And both of these were actually ones that I made myself. Those are both sculpted and 3D printed by me, because again, I didn't want to spend money on jump packs, so I made my own. And
well, just be glad you did the Mark 7 one, because those things weigh a ton. I've actually got a couple.
Oh, got it. Yeah, no, I know. I have a few of them too, and it was like, just God, I don't want to spend like all this money on either tracking those down or whatever, because it's like yeah, if I have the parts around, I'll kind of use like era appropriate parts or whatever. But otherwise, like, I'm not afraid to like make my own or even mix and match parts. Like I just finished doing a Rogue Trader guy that I stuck a 3rd edition backpack on because I thought it was fun. You know?
So for the folks watching, what is your kind of formula for painting Blood Angels like this?
Oh, so these are ones that I think I did that. Like I said, a black base coat, kind of like a really kind of just rough coat of Imperial Japanese Navy green from Tamiya. A zenithal like highlight of white. With these guys too, I had to be a little bit more careful because you have a lot of flat areas on the top of like the jump pack and stuff, and so you kind of have to sort of watch what you're doing. Otherwise, you just end up with like this bright area on there. Which, okay, technically, if the lights come from the top, it would be bright, but visually, it gets boring. Like we don't have to always follow the laws of physics. We can make these things bend to our will and make things visually interesting. Yeah. And so like I will usually I'll do like a zenithal highlight of just white ink. It's really nice. It goes on like really nice and smooth, just light coats. So kind of build up a gray into a white on kind of the highest points. And then I believe I was doing, and it's kind of hard to see on them, which I suppose was kind of the point. I will do kind of what am I trying to say here? Like a highlight with the airbrush too of a color called Angel Red from Army Painter, which is definitely based on like the old Blood Angel Red from way back in the day.
You're talking about the orange red?
Just on, what's that?
You're talking about the orangish red?
Yep, the orangish red. And so I'll put a little bit of that on like say like the tops of the shoulder pads. like usually kind of like the bottom of like the leg joints and the feet, kind of when they're doing that A pose, it gets kind of out into the light, kind of anywhere where I think it might look kind of cool. It's an easy thing to overdo, so I try not to hit them too hard, but yeah, so that's my general process on doing it. And again, the yellows and stuff on there was, like I was saying before, it's a coat of Games Workshop Averland Sunset, with a coat of I think it was like what is it called, Zealot yellow speed paint from Army Painter over it, and then I'll just glaze like I think I was, what was it? It was what is some bright yellow from Citadel. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head now, but I'll just kind of glaze coats of that down toward where it would highlight, and then highlight it up with like, more like I don't have ice yellow, but it's kind of like that. It's like an ice yellow, or like
I just picked up a bottle of that from AK. It's good stuff.
Yeah, no, but yeah, I'm thinking about it. I have a couple of other things I'm trying to kind of work through. Army Painter again has kind of similar paints in their Fanatic range now.
Yeah, they've got my gal just bought the 50 color set from them, and it came with their version of Ice Yellow, and it works really well. I was actually going to suggest to you with you're talking about Blood Angels Orange, and she keeps coming up. Louise, for her signature series for Pro Acryl, she did it's called Orange Red, and it's like identical to Blood Angels Orange from the 90s.
Yeah, no, but I got it. I see that at my there's another game shop by where I work, and I will wander in there and I see that they have her paint set, and so far I haven't broken down, but in part because those receipts go directly to my wife's email for some reason. She doesn't need to know how often I visit that store, but yeah, no, I really do want to get my hands on just a bottle of that. I think you can order them separately from like their website or something. I might do that. If your store has the expanded rack, you can actually buy it individually. Like I bought the color individually, and like that's that's the first highlight color that I use for my Blood Angels. Like all around their armor is I'll go through and glaze on a couple of coats of that orange red, and it gives it that nice subtle like orange tint. Like where it's not like super loud, but it just gives it that nice nice transition between like pure red to like a nice orangish red, and you can do the orange highlights on it. It's super easy to work with when you water it down. Yep, exactly. It warms up a little bit. Yeah, I'm going to a place where I think they'll have that tomorrow. Maybe I'll check it out.
Yeah, definitely buy a bottle of that. You'll love it. And since you're using an airbrush, just thin it down, run it through the airbrush, and do a couple of coats of it, and I think you're really gonna dig it. What is this little guy?
Oh, that was when my wife had encouraged me to make a like a little announcement thing for my my shop, Goblin's Den Miniatures. And so that's a little logo she made for me, actually. Okay, I was curious about that. Oh, and this thing is Sanguinius, Lord of the Host, something Imperium Secundus. I can't remember all the titles or whatever. Yeah, no, probably my favorite 40K character. Along with a lot of other. I could sit here and talk your ear off about Blood Angels lore.
Cool. Holy crap!
And this was kind of one of those things. Like I painted this when I was going through like a severe depressive episode, and this was kind of one of those things where it was like painting something to make your, like painting as a mental health exercise. And this was definitely one of those things. I wanted to paint something that shone like the sun. And like I'd had this model in my closet for years, and I was afraid to paint it because
where's
it's
this
my
from?
Favorite character. Oh, I think this is the old, oh gosh, what was it? Kabuki Studios, I think, put it out. And I don't know whether the one that I got was an official one or not. I got it off of eBay, and it was in a weird purple resin, so I suspect it might have been a recast. But it ended up being just a beautiful model. Like I am not actually a huge fan of non-metallic metals, and so like I want my metals to be like just shiny and catch the light, and just it was one of those things that was very cheering. It really kind of like. Once I kind of got them all finished, like seeing them like all triumphant standing on top of Cabanda's head or whatever, I was like, just God, like, yeah, whatever I'm going through, I bet I can handle it. But yeah, I kind of tried doing some stuff like putting some reflections on the wings, and
this thing is impressive as hell. This thing is cool.
Thank you. Yeah, I worked really really hard on them, and I think even I took and did some like just glazes of red down kind of where the legs would have reflected like the head of the demon and everything. And yeah, I worked really hard on him. He's one of my favorite pieces. At some point, I'll make a little display base. I have some of the new Mark 6 Marines. I was going to make like a little display base where they're kind of like around them, like it was everybody fighting at the Eternity Gate or something. So
no, this like honestly, like this is, I think this model is actually like the actual model itself is better than the version that Games Workshop did for Horus Heresy.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I went with this one. I can't remember. I think I got it off of eBay. It was years ago that I picked it up, and I liked the pose better than I liked the one on the official model. Like I get what they were going for, but it just doesn't do it for me.
Yeah,
it just was.
Well, like one of the dudes,
one
of the guys from Major Kill, the second dude, I forgot his name. He did a diorama with Sanguinius versus Horus, and yeah,
that's right.
know,
yeah,
like,
I think that was
some of those like Primarch models that GW did. They were kind of hit and miss. There were some of them that were really good, and there were other ones where it was just like what the Layman Rust they did. I'm like, no. The Horus, like the Horus Ascended, that's cool.
Yeah, no, and the Chagatai Khan one that my wife actually got me that.
That's White Scars.
White Scars, yep,
Okay.
yeah, it's probably my second favorite Space Marine Primarch. Like he whips, like the sculpting on that is amazing. I've got him like half painted in my closet. I should probably get back to him.
Yeah,
like
finish that thing.
I kind of will
do it.
Yeah, I'll take and like kind of move stuff off of my desk so I don't get upset by like seeing half finished projects. It's something I feel like I can't finish. So
it was actually one thing that caught my eye. I really like the Sisters of Battle. I like the volumetric lighting you did on her. That's really cool.
Oh yeah, thank you. And this was actually, it was funny because it was actually more of a test because not to turn this into like QVC or anything. That base is another thing from my shop that I had made a bunch of like just sort of like kind of temple. I call them temple bases or whatever. And it's like I needed an example model, and I had this old Sister Superior, and I've always kind of really liked the Order of the Argent Shroud. So, and it was something totally different from what I usually paint because it's like, almost all metallic and a lot of like kind of bone and bone colors in there, but still with like the reds that I'm used to painting and stuff. So yeah, no, I really liked the way that she turned out.
Yeah, she turned out great. And I also really like the plasma glow that you got on our pistol.
Yeah, no, yeah, and that was God. I think I did that with some, I think Liquitex like fluorescent inks, which God, I had to put more coats on there than you'd think because they are really really thin. Which is good because that's what you want. But
well, no, like the brighter, like with yellows and greens and stuff like that, like brighter greens. When you like, I've talked to Monument Hobbies about how they actually formulate their colors, and when you get a green that uses a yellow base, it's going to be a really thin green just because yellow is a very thin pigment to begin with. So like red, yellow, like bright green, stuff like that, they just tend to be really thin they tend to be really thin colors. They have, in modern paints, they have a lot of pigmentation, but you're still dealing with the fact that it's just a thin color. And like I said earlier, that's where you undercoat with white to help aid that thin pigmentation or the thin color itself. But I agree with you in that situation. It's like, adding layers of the color is actually a better idea because you have a lot more control of how you build that pigmentation over the white to make that glowing effect. That's really cool. Oh, did I?
Yeah,
oh,
yeah, totally.
Okay, let's dig. I think one more, and then we'll do some shout outs because I'm sure you got a few, and you are more than welcome to plug your own shop. That's the whole point of this podcast. Oh, this. Did you do that for the Darren Latham challenge?
No, that was actually before that. It was just kind of I was kind of on a whole nostalgia thing. It's like, God, I kind of, because really the first game of 40K I played was with these guys. We played just the missions out of the book, and I was like, gosh, I would really like to paint another one. And I think if you go to the next slide, it was also kind of an example of how much I'd improved because like that guy on the left, I had. And again, I was stoked about the guy on the left. I thought he turned out really good when I painted him, but I had painted him about a year before I painted this other one. It's kind of one of those things where, like, yeah, I think you can kind of see the difference. Like, hey, I was kind of like, yeah, I've improved. He looks a little better.
Yeah, definitely. So, you got a lot more brush control on this. Your highlighting is a lot better. Your detail on the chest eagle or chest aquila, so I don't get yelled at. That looks really good. Yeah. this guy is just like embedded, like from our generation of 40K. This guy, like these models are just embedded in our skulls.
Oh yeah, no, I know, and it's another one of those things. I love them to death, but they really are just like a turd of a skull. I mean, like they take a lot of cleanup to kind of make them look good, but it's one of those things that like, God, I almost wouldn't have it any other way. I've painted a whole squad of them now, and I really don't want to paint one ever again. But
I think like a lot of new Hammer folks don't understand and don't realize that like everything is in plastic now, and like plastic molding and sculpting and all that has, I mean, from when you and I were young, has come leaps and bounds. I mean, just astronomically better for new Hammer folk. Like plastics in our day, oh, they were god awful. It was like they were like scraping the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, like they get the job done, and like again, no, like I love every one of these guys I painted. I wouldn't have painted a whole squad of them if I didn't. But it's like sometimes I think people put the nostalgia glasses on and don't kind of realize how, you know, it maybe still wasn't the best sculpt ever, I guess we'll say, even if it is kind of like an important part of history and like, you know, a bit of fun and whatever.
At least I don't know. Comparably, like I actually like the RTB01s better because you had all the posability of them, whereas like these guys were just completely static.
Yeah, and I actually one of the local game shops I go to, I managed to actually mine most of a RTB01 Space Marine out of there. I think I just need a head, which I'll have to track down through other means. But yeah, I want to paint one of them and put it in a squad, because I'm kind of my ongoing project is I want to paint the whole fourth company, and so I have a box with like in my closet with everybody like labeled by squad. Or like 10 Marines each in squads. Like I got like 6 tacticals and everything that you're supposed to have. But yeah, that's again me hyper focusing on weird stuff. But yeah, I kind of want to add one of those RTB ones in there into the mix just for fun.
And just to talk about for the last model, because we got to wrap this up. I brought up a fantasy miniature of yours, and I just noticed that you did this for Olden Demon 22. This is really impressive.
Oh, thank you. Like and it was. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, just all the contrast you have going on, the nice, bright, vivid colors. Like this guy, this is excellent. I really, really like this. I'm not a huge fan of fantasy miniature or Warhammer fantasy stuff, but this is really good.
Yeah, nope. And when I was still playing, like I played a little bit of fantasy, and so I ended up with a good sized Chaos Beastman army. So I thought they were kind of neat looking. I might actually do another one for Olden Demon this year. I haven't kind of decided what, if anything, I'm going to do, but this one again was from my childhood, one of my favorite models that I'd ever done. I always thought like the wizards in my army should be all like albino or something, and so it's like that's actually
kind of a cool idea.
Yeah, like I thought it would kind of like added a little bit of like a mysticism or something to them. Like you would just be kind of like different. And so I ended up like pulling them out, and again I painted flat colors over everything. I think I have a before picture way back somewhere in there what he looked like before I dipped him in the soup. But like I wanted to kind of hold true to that, and so I kind of tried to paint him sort of a dirty white kind of albino goat. Like I think my coworkers were really weirded out because I'd be sitting there on my lunch breaks like looking at just pictures of goat heads, like trying to figure out how I was gonna like do the nose and stuff. So,
hey, it's reference material.
No, yeah, it was a lot of fun. Yeah, no, my coworker Adam, I'm sure, was kind of like he's used to me, so he's probably like, oh, okay, you know.
No, I think the choice for doing his fur in white, it's really good. Your whole the entire aesthetic of the model, everything works really well together. You've got, you can easily tell like which part of him is, the organic part, the goat part, and then everything else. You can tell the cloth, the scepter, the horns, everything. Everything stands out very, very well on this model. This is excellent.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, it was another one I worked really hard, kind of more trying to kind of ape that old Games Workshop style too.
Yeah,
where there's kind of like a little bit less of like the deep shading and stuff on it. But yeah, no, it was
okay.
fun.
So we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up. Is there so this is kind of a new thing that I'm incorporating now. Is there anybody you want to give shout outs to?
Sure, actually, yeah. Two of my favorite people on Instagram, JJ Warhammer, who has not only loaned me, or not loaned me, but we kind of have a pen pal situation going on. He lives in the UK, And like he's been really encouraging of like my painting and like getting me bits and of my and of my 3D sculpting too. Like I think he was the first one who was like, hey, that's a really cool thing you made there. Can I have one? And that kind of started our relationship of like, we'd send little care packages back and forth. And then another person I would like to shout out, and she periodically takes breaks from Instagram. I'm not sure if she's really doing a whole lot right now, but her stuff is still worth a look. Senorita M. She does a lot of like Nurgle conversions and stuff. They're really cool, and she's also like a super posy person. She'll always like tell people like, hey, remember to stay hydrated, take your meds, and like, hey, I'm like, that's great. So yeah, they're two of my favorite people whenever I see one of their posts come up. So,
and you mentioned earlier that you have a shop. Do you want to plug that?
Yeah, yep. I mean, there's a few of them around here, but like, yeah, definitely any Minnesota native will probably know about the Source Comics and Games in Falcon Heights, Minnesota. Like if you're ever in the lovely city of St. Paul, stop by. It's a great place. They got everything. And then also, if you're a little bit further out of the cities, the Forge in Chaska, Minnesota, is a phenomenal shop, and everybody there is really nice. And you can be a goblin like me and dig through their bits table on your lunch break while people give you weird looks.
Well, what I was actually asking was, you mentioned earlier that you have an online shop for your stuff too.
Oh, geez, yeah, no, the thing my wife told me to do. Jesus, it's getting late. I'm getting tired. Sorry. Yes. Or you could visit my shop, Goblin's Den Miniatures, and it's just on 3dcults.com. It's a website again for if you have a 3D printer and you want to download STL files. There's a lot of cool stuff on there, but there's especially again cool stuff if you go to Goblin's Den Miniatures, which not a whole lot of stuff up there right now. I kind of just add stuff as I feel the need to do it. But if you like that tech priest from earlier, he's there. If you like those floor tiles from earlier, they're there too. And maybe later I'll put up those jetpacks and some shoulder pads. So, hey.
Well, so like just for viewers watching, I'll get Harry to send me the link, and I'll post it down in the description of the video below, so you can go check his stuff out. But I think we're gonna wrap the show up for the night. So thank you everybody for tuning in, and here's a couple more of my videos if you want to check them out, including a podcast. And I should have another episode out in a couple of weeks. And until then, I'll talk to you guys next time. Take it easy.